Good evening, everyone. This is Jeff with Astroscoop Deep Dive Astrology Coaching. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, March 28th, 2025. And tonight we're going to continue Aries. And okay, Carolyn's here. Carolyn says, happy solar eclipse. Yes, I was just going to mention, we're going to talk about that tonight. The new moon, which occurs tomorrow morning, March 29th, just before 6 a.m. and the new moon in Aries. So we will talk about that. And of course, we're going to talk about more of the sign of Aries and the essence of Aries. And we will talk about the Aries 2 period, which runs from April 3rd to right around the 10th or 11th. So we will wait a few minutes, see if anyone else comes in. It's, like I said, it's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the States. And I've been watching a lot of different astrologers. I mentioned this last week. A lot of different astrologers from around the world, mostly non-United States astrologers, for a couple of reasons. One is to get different perspectives on some of the energies, the transits and the eclipses and the full moon, but also because it's interesting to hear astrologers from other countries talk about some of this information in the Zodiac or tropical astrology or modern astrology or traditional astrology and have their own spin on it and coming from other countries. So it's just really, really interesting. So I highly recommend watching different people other than myself, but please continue to watch Astroscoop. I appreciate it. Now, for several weeks now, probably about a month, most of my views have been from here in the United States. So 30 to 40% of my views are coming from people from the States. So thank you very much, US. I appreciate that. The other countries make up a small amount and have taken a little bit of a backseat to my views. And but I really appreciate the United States participation and the deep dive viewers and listeners. So it's 3 minutes after 8 p.m. It's March 28th, 2025. And we are exactly 1 week here into spring in this hemisphere. On the other side of the world, they're 1 week into fall. And spring is just such a wonderful, it's just such a wonderful time. Today was warmer. Last week we had the blustery wind, but the brightness of the sun and the animals was increased even more so than 2 or 3 weeks ago. But today it was warmer and brighter. Tomorrow we're supposed to hit 70. So it's pretty amazing with some rain. And then it'll get cool again for another 3 or 4 weeks. Coolish. But this is such a good transition from the very, very long winter that a lot of states had this season. It was a very long winter in a lot of ways. So it's good that we're here on spring. And before we get started, I just want to mention, and if anyone comes in on the replay, please don't forget my live streams are here every week here on YouTube at Astroscoop 3801 at 8 p.m. Fridays. I'm on X, which is Astro_Scoop, and I'm also on Instagram, which is Astroscoop7. And I've been posting a lot more on Instagram in the last couple months. So if you're on there, please follow me. And if you get on there and you're not following me, look up Astroscoop7. And I always share my Instagram posts to Twitter or X and vice versa. So to try to keep people posted on what I'm doing, what's coming up, and all the examples I use, the astrological examples I use in my live streams about the celebrities, musicians, and the current astrological periods and transits etc. So we're 5 minutes in. I see no one else has popped in yet. So I'm considering, the live streams have been a little slow lately. So I am considering maybe changing the day or time to see if I can engage other time zones. But if anyone watches this on the replay, please comment and let me know when you would like to see an Astrology Astroscoop live stream. Would you want to try to see something during the week, maybe at lunchtime or early morning? Of course, that would be different depending on your time zone. But if you comment, let me know what time zone you're in, and I can get some ideas there. So it's 8:05, and like I said, we're 1 week into spring. And what's nice about late March going into April, which April is next week, is now we are fully into Aries. So we're off the cusp of the Pisces Aries cusp, and now we're full into Aries, into the Mars Decan, which I talked about last week. And then next week, starting on the 3rd, depending on the degree and year, 3rd to the 10th or 11th, we begin Decan 2 of Aries, and then that's, all Aries are ruled by Mars, but this week, the 3rd to 10th, is co-ruled by the Sun, which is a Leo influence. So we'll talk about that, talk about how the Mars and the Sun works together for Aries people born between April 3rd and 10th, and how they differ from Aries in the first decan that we talked about last week. And of course, always good celebrity examples. We're going to talk about the new moon, which I have the chart here, which is tomorrow morning. I have tonight's chart, and I'm looking at tonight's chart right now. And I also have a chart for March 28th, 1995. So 30 years ago, exactly right now. So for someone that is turning 30 tonight, so someone or anybody around the world that's born in 95, that's turning 30 years old, I have their chart. And part of the reason why I'm going to showcase that is because we'll talk a little bit about Saturn. And the Saturn cycles are for the people that are born on the 5 years, 35, 65, and 95 primarily. 35, 1965, and 1995. So if you or know anybody that are born those years, they are right up, or they just about finishing, or they're right coming up on finishing their Saturn return. For the 95 folks that I'm going to showcase, for someone turning 30, it's their first return. For someone turning 60, it's their second. And if someone is old enough to be turning 90 tonight or soon, they would be experiencing their third, 3 Saturn returns in one lifetime. So I wonder what that feels like for someone that's 90, if someone was 90 and aware of astrology and aware of their chart. And that also kind of goes for people that are born on the 6th year. As it gets towards the summer and fall, you're going to be coming up on yours. So those people will be 36, 66, and 96. So anybody born on those 6 years, towards the end of the year into 2026, you will be getting, it's very exciting, you'll be getting your another 6-year Saturn conjunction cycle, as we talk about Saturn going from Pisces into Aries. So big changes this year. Every year has big changes in astrology and the transits, but for some reason this year feels really, really meaty. Feels really meaty in terms of the changes. All right. So I want to mention, here's the YouTube live at 8. I mentioned that. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. If you're watching me here on YouTube, please log in. If you found me and you find the content exciting or valuable, log in and please click subscribe and then click all or personalized. It will help you get notified of all the videos I do and live streams in real time. You'll get notified. You'll never forget. And if you don't want to get every video or live stream notification of mine, which there really aren't that many, it's really generally one a week. It's once in a while, in a month, it might be 2 a week. You can click personalized instead of all, and then it will just feed you one of my feeds, a notification of a newer video or live stream that I did based on what you've watched that's similar. It'll suggest something on my Astroscoop playlist. So that's kind of cool too, because that's the algorithm deciding, oh, maybe you watch Jeff's Pisces, maybe you want to watch the water signs playlist or the Pisces videos, or maybe you want to watch cusp signs when I talked about Pisces, Aries, and that sort of thing. So tonight we are at, let's see here. So tonight we are at the sun at 8 degrees of Aries, and tomorrow morning at 5:55 a.m. the sun and moon will be conjunct for the new moon in Aries, and that also encompasses Mercury in Aries, which is retrograde and gone back to 0, almost Pisces, and of course the whole slew of Pisces energy, which we've been talking about for weeks and months, sort of thing. But this new moon, most astrologers around the world are very into the lunar phases and the moon cycles. And when you get a good handle on the moon signs and the phases, and you know your own birth chart, or you're doing charts for loved ones or other people, it's things really come out and speak to you. And the new moon in Aries tomorrow at 8, which is still the first decan of Aries, so it's a Mars moon. It's a Mars ruled sun and a Mars ruled moon. So the sun moon combination in Aries is all Mars. Whereas when we get into next week and we get into the second decan, we will have the sun influence or the Leo influence. So this degree, here's the new moon in Aries right here. Tomorrow morning, right here, is the sun and moon conjunct in Aries. Now look at that stellium. That stellium was the stellium, the grouping, Saturn, the node, Venus, Neptune, and then Mercury is now placed back on the cusp of Pisces and Aries. So that's involved in the stellium as well. So I have all this Pisces, late Pisces, Aries energy, and then coming into this sun and moon at 8 degrees of Aries, all ruled by this Mars in Cancer right here. So I mentioned in the past how the Mars in Cancer is not the most, it's not the strongest placement and not the most peaceful placement for Mars. It's kind of a Mars sign. Cancer Mars sign takes its energy sort of from its moods and its temperament. So the Cancer Mars person can often be temperamental, and the energy is fluctuating and moody, which it can be with any water sign, any Mars and water sign, especially Pisces too. But the Mars in Cancer is tough because it's fluctuating moods, and it's the moon placed in the Mars planet, which is the Aries ruler. So we have all that Aries energy ruled by Mars in Cancer. So that's kind of testy. And I kind of noticed the way people are driving lately. I mean, people drive crazy all the time, but it's really, really, the craziness has sped up. No pun intended, has sped up here big time in the last week. But that sun and moon in Aries at 8 degrees is going to conjunct any most Aries people that had their birthday within this last week. So if your birthday is this decan, it's close, but it's not the actual conjunction to your sun, not the moon anyway. But the sun and moon in Aries, it's the one day of the year, it's the one and only time in the zodiac cycle where the sun and moon are conjunct in Aries. It is the number one time to take initiative and take action. Now, that's what everybody says about Aries, but it really is true. And even though Mercury is retrograde in Aries, which I mentioned last week, the sun and moon in Aries doesn't have a lot of mental handcuffs, so to speak, holding the energy back. So we're any and all of us, especially Aries people that have a birthday this week, especially getting your solar return. But any of us, wherever Aries is in your chart, it's an opportunity to have a rebirth and express yourself in a fresh, brand new way, reinvent yourself, and to show people your greatness, show people your unique spark. And with greatness, I don't mean ego necessarily, because Aries can be a sign of ego. I don't mean show people your ego necessarily, although there's nothing wrong with having a healthy, strong ego. But what I mean by greatness is that I don't mean you're great and you're better than someone else. I mean you're just your unique sense of self, the I am quotient, the I am phrase, which is Aries, is both for the sun and the moon, which is the emotional energy of the cosmos tomorrow. The sun and moon are all I am. Show me who I am. So this is a good weekend, or even the next week, till the next cycle, till we go to the quarter moon phase where it's in Cancer, and then the sun in Aries and Cancer moon will square each other, and then that moon in Cancer will conjunct Mars. So that could be a little testy too next week. So be careful of that. And Aries rules the head. All Aries planets rule the head, but certain degrees in the constellation relate to the jaw. So lower part of the head and the jaw is these degrees of Aries. So the new one, Aries, head, jaw, and just be careful of accidents with your head, especially Aries people. Really be careful with accidents. But even someone with an Aries planet, if you have the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars rising, be very careful of accidents in the next week, especially as it gets close to squaring that Mars in Cancer. But if you don't have any Aries planets and you're not an Aries, you still have Aries in your chart somewhere. So you can find that. I can do your natal birth chart if you want, but you can also look it up online and just find out where your Aries house is and where the sun and moon at 8 degrees of Aries is hitting. If you are, let's say, if you are a Libra, which is the opposite sign, in the Libra solar chart, Libra would be on the first house, and then Aries would be on your 7th house of partnership. So it could be a passionate, direct activation of Libra partnership, which Libra is the sign of. But better yet, that's to generalize all Libras to do a solar chart. But better yet, if the Libra person knows their rising, then they can find out where. Now, if a Libra person is a Libra rising, if they're Libra and Libra rising, sun and Libra rising, they're most likely this new moon would fall in their 6th house of work or their 7th house of partnerships. So it could be very much a focal point for people that have strong Libra planets, this new moon, even though there's no major Libra in the cosmos. So again, that's something I always talk about that in a moment, about the opposites. So we'll come back to that in a minute, but I want to mention that the Aries 2 decan, which is the Mars and Sun, these are these people born this week, and I've known quite a few, mostly men, but I've known a few women too, pack a punch. This is definitely packing a punch for Aries. How does an Aries 2 born between April 3rd and 10th differ from someone that was born this week, coming up to the 1st and 2nd? Well, the first week I mentioned last week, where these Aries people are all Mars, and their co-ruler's Mars. So it's an early, raw rebirth of the Zodiac energy. It's the very, very early rebirth, literally a newborn baby of energy, or a newborn animal, creature, bird, squirrel, any creature, even an insect, of that brand new raw energy of like literally being days old, brand spanking new. That's the early Aries energy. But when Aries goes over 10 degrees, and here I have it at about 13 degrees, it's generally 13 to 20 degrees for Aries 2 people. These people pack a punch because not only are they Arian and they're Mars people and very active and dynamic like Aries 1, but adding the sun, having the decan of the sun, which is a Leo influence, gives these Aries folks a unique glow. So there's a certain glow about Aries folks born this week that is much different than someone born today, or that was born on March 25th or the 24th, 23rd, and quite different than people, Aries that are born later, which are Aries 3, closer to the Aries Taurus cusp, which I know many of those people. I have 2 of those people in my family. And so the Aries people born this week, you will almost always see something about them. So not only do they want to express their I am of Aries, I am here, I am into this, I am passionate, I am enthusiastic, I want to share all this greatness with you, whatever it is. But the sun here, the sun gives these Aries a steadier flame. So the early Aries impulsiveness and impulsivity that many Aries people can have, especially in youth, even into their 20s and 30s. The Aries 2 people, this decan, the sun, the Leo sun influence gives them more of a steadiness. They're more steadfast. Now, that's both a positive and a negative. The people I've known this week, they can be very warm, very generous, very giving, but they can also be more stubborn and a little more not necessarily bossy, but a little more autocratic, or something a little stronger. They're a little stronger in how they want to govern their lives. They're a little more fixed, a little stronger about it. Their glow is stronger than an early Aries person that's more childlike. This Aries 2 person is a little less childlike than the early Aries raw energy, but it's still strong, but it's steady because of the sun, and it adds an element adds a dramatic element to people born between the 3rd and 10th. So even if you know someone born this week that's shy or introverted, they will have something. They'll have something in their life that they need to be at the center of. Doesn't necessarily mean the center of attention, where they walk into a room and they want everyone's attention. It's not necessarily that. But whatever projects they're involved in, whether it be work or hobby, Aries 2 people have to be at the core of it. It's very, very important to them because there's more, they put more of their heart into their endeavors. There's more heart energy. It's a little different with the sun rather than the first decan, which is all Mars energy, which is more just pure energy, and it's more head. It's more head and not as much heart, That doesn't mean early Aries people don't have heart or good hearts. It just means Aries 2 people like to express that more because of that steadiness of the sun's decadent. And they can be characters, definitely can be characters this week because of being born under the star of Alpheratz, which is a very, very strong, extremely bright, shining star. So that's what I mean about people, Aries born between the 3rd and the 10th. They shine. They don't shine exactly like a Leo does. It's a little different, but they shine in an Aries sort of way that's very, very unique. And a lot of people don't like it. They don't like it because Aries people born this week have a natural charisma or a natural confidence. It doesn't. Now, I've known men this week that I would consider that had a big ego. Yes, when we were young, when I was a teenager, I knew a couple guys born this week, and I can think, yes, but part of that was immaturity and not being developed, especially being under 20 years old. But there's a sun element, a Leo element there that has to express itself. And the Alpheratz is very bright. And it is also related to the myth of the chained princess in mythology, where the princess is chained through various rituals. And the idea is that she has sacrificed a certain amount and now is ready to shine and wants to be free. So Aries born this week, even though they're steadier and less restless than early Aries in general, less restless and a little more steady, a little stronger, their fire is a little more potent. The influence of Alpheratz with these degrees of Aries creates it creates a little bit of a dilemma for Aries 2 people. And because Aries 2 people love freedom. They really need to do their own thing. It's vital that they do their own thing. Doesn't matter if they're married or in a committed relationship or whatever. So almost like like a very independent Leo or a very independent Aquarius person. Aries people born this week have to do their own thing. But they very much want to be at the center of their loved ones and their friends. They need to make an impact and have influence. And that's the Leo Decan, the Leo influence there. They need to have influence on people. They want to have influence on people in a positive way, hopefully, in a glowing way. So Aries 2 people, they want freedom, but they also have some of that need for recognition and to give to others and be in the core or the center of things of their world. So there's a little bit of a dilemma there for Aries 2 people. Do I want to be free, or do I want to be in the center of all this stuff? Do I want to be a little more free, or do I want to live up to all of my familial work and friendship, responsibilities? So it very much depends on what the Mars sign is for the man or woman that's born this week. That gives you a lot of indication. If an Aries person had their Mars in an air sign that are born between the 3rd and 10th, that wouldn't necessarily be a good thing in terms of relationships, because that would just add more restlessness and more of a need for socialization and more of a need for even more space. If their Mars was in an earth sign, that would help a lot with grounding. If their Mars was in a water sign, it would depend on if they created steam or not in the aspects, and if they were moody or not. And then if their Mars was in a fire sign, in addition to being a fire sign, that could be a trine. If their Mars was also in Aries and their Sun and Mars were conjunct, that would be an awful lot of potent energy, almost too much. So it wouldn't matter if that person was a man or a woman. The assertive and aggressive energies would be probably a bit much for most people. So that would pack way too much of a punch and probably overwhelm a lot of people with their energy. So freedom is a big theme here for Aries people in general, because Aries is a very independent sign. But because of this Alpha Rats, because of this star, the mythology of it, it gives these Aries an ease. There's an ease to people born this week. I've known a lot of people born this week that are just naturally talented, just natural talent. And it's different. It's not like the talent of an air sign, the versatility. It's not like a Aquarius talent, like Aquarius would have a natural talent for music or composing or brilliant for writing. This is more of an ease of self-expression and knowing how to influence others, knowing how to mentor or coach people, and just doing that in a very warm and very direct manner that people can respond to, that is sort of immediate. And there's a love of life here that also relates to the star here, like a very strong passion and love of life. And whether this Aries person born this week takes that too far and gets into hot water with things or love of life, it could happen. And some Aries people can overdo, the passions of life and possibly even be lazy as well. And the laziness can come from the Leo influence and having this ease. If certain things come easy to them because of their natural talent, they could have that love of life and also rest on their laurels, so to speak. But this week has fixity, definitely has fixity. And any week where, any zodiac period where the sun sign is in a fixed decan, you will always have more purpose. So Aries born this week, Aries 2 people, you have more purpose in general than Aries born early this week, the early Aries people. You will always have more of a purpose and a little more of a dignified approach towards your endeavors, your work, and your projects. And this can lead to riches. These degrees, often the stars are, for some ancient texts, talked about riches and honors and popularity for people born this week. And I have seen that in people in Aries born this week, about a natural kind of ability to attract others, attract friends, and or admirers as well, that kind of thing. And they're very keen, but because of the sun influence, it's very warm, it's a steadier, it's not, again, that keen mind is not quite as impulsive and not as restless as the pure Aries person born early in the week. So an Aries born this week, you really need to look at their Mars, but it's also good to look at their Mercury too, because Aries is a fast sign. Aries does things fast, but in the sun decanate, that is steadied a little bit. And if you look to Mercury, if these Aries people have Mercury in Taurus, which a lot of them do, a lot of charts that I've looked up this week happen to have Mercury in Taurus, that will ground them immensely. And in fact, I knew one guy when I was young who was born this week. He became a classical musician, and he had a wonderful amount of patience for becoming a classical musician. And I knew what year he was born, so I was able to look him up. This was decades ago, and he has Mercury, Sun in Aries in the Sun decan, Leo influence, which is performance, and with Mercury in Taurus. If someone born this week had Mercury in Pisces, that would add to more creativity and would also add to a little more indecisiveness, but it could also soften the potency of the Mars and Sun combination with that energy and that influence on others. So it would depend. If this Aries person also has the Mercury in Aries, there would be a very, very strong ability to express their opinions, express a natural confidence, but also at times be very frustrated if they don't get their way. So if they put a lot of energy into a certain project or something, and they're not getting things are not going their way, the April 3rd to 10th Aries person, especially if Mercury is also in Aries, can be very. That's a strong lesson, huge lesson in patience and letting things unfold naturally, which is a lesson for all Aries people, but especially if someone has the Sun and Mercury in Aries, which I have known some people with that. And that's definitely an influence. But Mars would be your most important thing to look at. And then, since this is the Sun Decan, you have to consider there's like a hidden Leo influence there. You have to look at the house of the Sun in the birth chart. So for any Aries person born this week, what house is their Sun in? Where are they using that Aries Sun energy, that Aries Sun Leo energy? Where are they putting it in their life? If it's the 10th house, they'll probably be famous and they'll put it into work and career in the public. If it's in the 12th house, they will shine behind the scenes somehow. Maybe they'll be in theater, but behind the scenes, making all the drama happen. If it's the 5th house, it could be performance or sports sort of thing. So very important to look where, what house the Sun is in the birth chart. Very, very important. Those little things give you bingos. As an astrologer, it gives you bingos into what's going on. It's funny because some people that don't believe in astrology will get their chart done or a reading, and they almost always it almost seems to me like they want to confirm to themselves, yes, I don't believe in this. It's meaningless. But then there's kernels of truth there that some astrologers can uncover. And you can tell that the person that was a non-believer, they're kind of like, oh, maybe that's possible, so that they consider it. So there's a lot to look for with the planets there, and you always have to look deeper. That's the deep dive part of astrology. You look deeper into the chart for those clues. So intuition is a big mode here for Aries 2 people. Aries 2 people have a strong head, so they do have a strong intellectual bent, although their intellectual qualities are usually very kind of direct and linear. It's not intellectual like an Aquarius would be necessarily, or universal. But Aries people born this week have a strong intuition, can be very penetrating, and they're often right. Men born this week, I've noticed, often ignore this part of themselves. And I think, just from a general point of view of how boys are raised and men are raised in the society, I think it's kind of a masculine block. It's a defense mechanism that men serve. Some Aries men are not tending to doing any of their inner work, to their inner world of values and feelings. They don't want to necessarily tap into that or express that because it's not natural. Aries is very extroverted and very often goal-oriented to things and people that are outside of the Aries person, not necessarily what's inside. But that's a big lesson for Aries 2 people, is to honor that intuition and honor that inside voice, because it's often very sharp. And if more Aries people honor that, especially the men, they could see that they can combine that with a very sharp intellect and the head. So this relates to the 17th tarot trump card, the stars, which again, that's just stands for strength and hope. That's the stars card. And the interesting thing is the stars symbol in most tarot decks is an Aquarius symbol with water or knowledge, pouring water or knowledge like this. So it's a Uranus Aquarius kind of dry, hot card. So it's not an Aries card or a Leo card, but it does relate. This mythology does relate to the Tarot Trump 17th card of the stars. And Aries born this week, like I mentioned before, they have to have an impact. So they very much like to be a star in their own world, no matter how small it is. An Aries 2 person would much rather be a big fish in a small pond, right, than a small fish in a big pond. So he or she would get much more satisfaction taking the helm and driving their own race car, so to speak, of their life, even if that meant making less money. It's hard to quantify for most Aries people. And the Aries people I've known this week, almost all of them that I can think of, have had some kind of talent or skill where they can rely solely on themselves, and they don't have to be part of a team. I knew one Aries guy that was really good at tennis, and he was really skillful with tennis, the tennis machine, where he could string rackets and do that. So Aries also often likes to work with their hands. So he was very good with that. And that was something he could do for a team or a group, but he could do it solely by himself. And he could completely be in charge of that. So that's part of the Tarot Trump the Star. That's definitely Aries people born this week. So I wanted to mention James Dean. Now, James Dean was not an Aries, but his ascendant, ASC, this stands for ascendant or rising sign, and Uranus was both in these degrees. So when you consider the Aquarius person that James Dean was, and the trouble and the speed and those movies, the movie parts he did, and the edginess, combining it with Uranus and the ascendant in this degree, dramatic degree of the Sun, Mars, Aries energy, along with his Aquarius and his Scorpio moon. Holy cow. James Dean was a firecracker in every way, but that must have been so hard to be him, though. Can you imagine? I would not want that chart. No matter how powerful, how much talent that is, rest in peace. I would not want that. So he had that degree of that. Who also had it? I keep mentioning Marlon Brando. How many times did I mention Marlon Brando in the last year? He's also had it. So you look at these men, the air fans the fire. Yes. Very good. Exactly, Carol. Yep. So James being an Aquarius and then having that strong Sun, Leo, Mars, Aries energy. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And he was young. So if you don't have good values and you're not grounded and living a healthy lifestyle, and you have supportive people around you to keep you on a good path, yeah, that's tough. But Marlon Brando was born on April 3rd. Talk about a dramatic, potent actor who had sort of, I think he acted with Lee Strasberg, right? With that acting style, but he had his own style that I don't think anyone has been able to emulate or duplicate. So Marlon Brando may not be the best actor of all time, but he's probably someone that no one's been able to imitate. James Franco, he's a modern day actor that I think that tries to emulate Brando. I think with this he's got a little James Dean, a little Brando in him. He's got an edge to him. I think he probably have watched a lot of those guys, James Franco. But yeah, Brando, he had the moon at this degree as well. So Marlon Brando had the sun and moon in Aries, and then was ruled by Mars in Capricorn. Woof. So yeah, that's where you get into people that are famous and that have this lifestyle, and then the chart is unbalanced. That's a lot of what you want to look at in astrology. Is a chart balanced? That's what astrologers are always looking at, the weightings and scoring. And one chart, some astrologers love stelliums, and they say, wow, look at this person, has all these planets in Aries. The person's going to, carve out a niche for themselves. They're going to be successful. Nothing's going to be able to stop them. That's often true. I've known that to be true with people with stelliums in Scorpio. I've known when I've looked at charts that have 3, 4, 5 planets in Scorpio, the person almost never doesn't meet their goals. They decide what they want to do, and that Scorpio energy is like unstoppable. It's relentless, especially if that's most of the chart. But there's also cons to that. There's cons to that having way too much purpose and too much determination and drive. Something else suffers in your life. So that's kind of what happens with people that have other indicators other than the sun in Aries. But Brando, he was an Aries. So of course the opposites, we always talk about the opposites. Libra 2 is 6 months from now, and that's a more social energy. It's the Libra energy, it's Venus, and it's also a teacher of sorts. You know, the Libras I've known that were, which we'll talk about in 6 months, that are born the opposite of this coming week. Very often, I mentioned last week where Aries and Libra has the opposite. Air fans the fire, absolutely. And Libra has a lot, Librans can be really good teachers for Aries people, and vice versa. Aries people can really help Libras to act and not be afraid to make a decision or an action, stick with it, and then even if it doesn't go well and people don't like it, still be okay with it, and be okay with the fact that maybe not everyone approved of your decision. Aries it's easier for Aries to be okay with that than necessarily than a Libra that's more socially oriented. But Libra 2 teacher, it helps with values and hidden talents. So I always talk about the opposite. So Libra 2 people, if someone's born October 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, they're exactly having their half birthday, and they are exactly opposite this new moon. Tomorrow, they are exactly opposite. Their new moon in Libra month, whenever they were born, is opposite all this Aries energy. So just because there's no major Libra in the sky, cosmic sky right now, doesn't mean nothing's happening for Libra. In fact, it's activating Libra planets that are going to be between probably about 7 and like 15 or 14 degrees for this next week. It could be activating Libra planets. And then that would also be activating, like I said at the beginning, activating wherever the Libra person has whatever house they have Aries on. So if the Libra person was Libra rising, they'd have it on the 7th, like I mentioned before. So very, very important to always consider the opposites. So Libra 2 people, you will also feel this new moon, and then Capricorn 2 energy coming up on it, and Cancer, those degrees after the new moon is finished up to the next quarter phase. Because with the moon phases, the energy isn't just at the peak of it. It culminates. You know, it waxes and it wanes, and it wanes and it waxes. So it's like wax on, wax off, like the Karate Kid. So it's all energy. So when it's peak, but there's a low point. But that means it's like the fire is still on, the flame, the candle is still, the flicker is still on, but then the flicker goes to a full flame, and then it's a normal flame, and then it wanes, but it's still there. So that's why the other cardinal signs will feel the new moon, even if the transits, there's not a lot of that sign, that energy transiting the cosmic, the zodiac, which like that, and that goes for Capricorn and Libra. With Capricorn, of course, we had in the winter. With Capricorn, we have no planets in Capricorn. We don't have, not the node, not the Earth or part of fortune. Nothing. I'm not sure about the asteroids. I'd have to look. I don't have the asteroids on here, but with Capricorn, it's basically on the sidelines. But if someone had a Capricorn planet that was 8 or 9 or 10, they would feel this square tomorrow morning. They would feel it. It may activate something in their chart. So these transits here, we have the new moon. So tomorrow I rounded it off to 9. It's just about 8 to 9 degrees. It's square the midheaven, which is the public. Now this is in the cosmic chart tomorrow. So this would be a baby born tomorrow morning. So any baby born tomorrow morning, he or she would have this Sun, Moon, Mercury in Aries, Neptune in Pisces, almost Aries, Venus in Pisces, almost Aries, the node in Pisces, almost Aries, and Saturn in Pisces, almost Aries, and also the part of fortune in Pisces. My gosh. So that would be quite the chart. So, it's also square the midheaven and Mercury, as I mentioned, in Aries. And the ascendant tomorrow, the ascendant, it also squares Capricorn. So depending on when someone's born, there's also that energy. Just like I mentioned, the ascendant changes every hour or two. So there's always going to be some kind of alignment that happens with a baby born, with a person born, as it goes throughout the 24-hour period on the moon cycle. So a lot of strong cardinal energy, which is Aries, cardinal. Cardinal signs are Libra, Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn. Very, very specific and very pointed for the Capricorn energy. So we have the moon in Aries. Like I mentioned, it's Mars in Cancer. Now, the good part of that, I know I keep being a Debbie Downer on Mars in Cancer, Debbie Downer, because I don't necessarily love that Cancer Mars placement. But the moon and Mars are reception, mutual reception. So it's like two people meeting for an interview, and in the lobby, they realize they're both there for the same interview, but they're both competing. So it's two people going for an interview, and they sit down. They don't know they're both going for that job. One person's there at 12, and then the other appointment's at 12:30. But they're both sitting there, and they're like, "How you doing?" So the moon, but there are a mutual reception. They have a mutual respect for each other with the energy. So the moon in Aries is receptive to the Mars in Cancer because Cancer goes well with the moon and Aries goes well with Mars. So that is a saving grace with all the strong cardinal energy and the aggressive energy or temperamental energy, the moon and Mars. So wherever that is in people's charts, you can look and see how that might affect you. But that is one good thing. And that is something that a baby will have. He or she will have that mutual reception. And that's always a good thing when you see that in charts. It gives certain charts that have like a square, which could be tension, and it just kind of lessens it a little bit. And like I said, it makes those two people or those two planets have a little bit of respect because they're receiving each other's energy. Okay, so for celebrities, we have Doris Day. I mention her all the time. She is a near perfect example, probably, of an Aries female actress. She was an AIDS activist. She was an animal activist, very fiery, really stood up for animals, and was an absolute beautiful woman, glowing, and a firebrand. Anthony Perkins, probably one of the best underrated actors of all time, who played Norman Bates from Psycho, but also played a lot of other roles. He had a very boyish quality about him with his smile, but he was also, in his own way, he looked kind of harmless, but he wasn't. But he was potent. He had a strong energy, and there's that Sun Leo influence where he could command the screen and those eyes and he could really get you to watch him. Craig T. Nelson, I mentioned him because he's the voice of Mr. Incredible in the kids movie The Incredibles, which is this, it's this family of, they have all these like superpowers. And Mr. Incredible, the dad, is this huge, he's Mr. Incredible. He's incredibly strong and powerful. But he's also sort of naive and sort of vulnerable and can be honest and boyish. But yet he has this dramatic kind of look to him and his delivery too. So I think Craig T. Nelson is a very good example. David Blaine, the magician and illusionist. he certainly is very dramatic, especially when he does those, when he's in like an ice bath or an ice cage. I know one of them he almost drowned from. I heard an interview with him. So he's very, very much a daredevil, but he's also a showman because of that illusionist part of him. So that's also how Aries people born this week are different than other Aries because of that sun, a little more of the show person. Stan Ridgway is a singer and composer from the group Wall of Voodoo. Very unique and very quirky, but also dramatic. Donald Myrick is a jazz musician, really, really good jazz kind of pioneer. Georg Holm is a musician from a group called Sigur Rós, also very unique and dramatic. Peyton List is a young actress. She came from Disney. She was in the Cobra Kai series. I believe she's turning 27 this week. And she's definitely an actress that shows the Aries qualities, but she's very proud and she has a glow about her. She really glows more than the other Aries of the other periods. So Peyton List, she's going to go really far. She's going to be an absolute movie star, I think. And she has that Aries, that Mars-Sun combination, no doubt. Ronnie Wilson was one of the brothers of the Wilson brothers from the Gap Band, the R&B group from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And he passed a long time ago, but he lent a really, really good dynamic songwriting and musicianship to the Gap Band. The Gap Band's music is very electric and dynamic and full of energy. And the lead singer, Charlie, the lead brother, is an Aquarius, but the other brother, Ronnie, was an Aries and certainly brought a great, dramatic, strong energy and really fun energy to the Gap Band. John Oates from Hall & Oates, absolutely one of the best songwriters ever, and one of the best songwriting teams with Daryl Hall. John Oates, Aries, Daryl Hall, Libra. Hall & Oates, one of the best songwriting teams in the world on the Billboard charts, Aries and Libra. So there you go. There's the opposition. And Steve Howe, British musician, progressive rock, very, very dramatic, very Mars. Adam Woods is a drummer from a British group called The Fix. He is excellent. The Fix are very underrated. They were popular in the late 70s and 80s, especially in the UK, but they also had some success here in the States. But Adam Woods, I've seen The Fix in concert many times. He is a very underrated drummer and very humble, very, very humble guy. I got to talk to him once, and I said, boy, you're a really good drummer. And he was like, he just said, that's my job. That's what I do. So really, really cool. Kane Hodder. Most people that are into horror movies will know Kane is a stuntman, and he played Jason from Friday the 13th, the Friday the 13th movies, but he's also done tons of other movies. He's a stunt coordinator, stunt supervisor, and also an actor playing these villains, these monstrous villains like Jason. And it's interesting because the archetypes in these horror movies, these hulking monsters, if you will, are usually male, right? And they take on a Mars or Aries, A-R-E-S, a warlike archetype. But they also take on a sun archetype too, like the god of the sun or Apollo, larger than life and big and strong, but also with a warmth that, and almost a like a pride, where a pride that could be hurt or wounded, and then this monster or villain comes to bring its force and its drama, possibly by being mistreated or not being recognized. So it's interesting that these people look for that. And then the last one I have is Steve Gadd, who's also another amazing musician. He's one of the best drummers, probably, arguably, ever. Very, very dynamic and very much a showman with the drums, and he played with a group called Steely Dan on some of their biggest hits, and some of the drumming in the Steely Dan songs it's just off the chart, just amazing. So all these celebrity Aries people, they're all Aries, ruled by Mars, but the uniqueness, if you really look at what they're doing, uniqueness is the glow of being in the sun decan. And that's how it differs so much than a Mars Aries. And it's how much it is also how it differs from next week when we're going to talk about Aries 3, which is the Jupiter or Sagittarius decan, which is similar, but also very different. So I always pick celebrities that are born just this period, not that are just generally Aries. Although, as we know, Aries in the chart, you're always going to look to Mars, but you always want to consider the co-ruler, and that goes into play with the fixed stars and the degrees, which is really, really, really important because that gives you a little more fine tuning. But this new moon energy, like I said at the beginning, I know we had a couple people are new and came in late, so I will mention it again. This new moon in Aries is at 8 degrees, and it's such an amazing time for Aries people. Aries people should feel really fired up this week, even if it's just inside or in their mind or their head, even if they don't show it. But it's a beautiful, warm, direct, honest energy. But it is all ruled by that Mars in Cancer. So it's colored, it's peppered with a little bit of that Cancer water energy. Like, we should be a little safer. We shouldn't be too impulsive. And I want to care about things and people. Mars in Cancer says, hey, I don't want to just do things without thought and without caring. I want to care about what we're doing here. So these impulsive ideas or actions we're going to take in the next week, the Mars in Cancer is saying, well, I'm direct now. Okay, what's my mood? I want to take Cancer. Cancer can take risks. Cancer can be very tenacious and strong, but it's not in that direct. It's not in that direct, open, more dramatic way that Aries energy is for this new moon coming into next week. But you have to look and find out where Aries is in your chart, because that's really the bingo, and will tell you where you are going to feel it and where you can use it, whether it's to meditate, to get into more productivity, depending on it's there. All you have to do is tap into it, kind of thing. And again, I mentioned at the beginning, those degrees, like 8, 9, 10 of Aries, which is coming up, is the head. So Aries people, I've known some Aries people that have had like inner ear problems or headaches or migraines or sinus problems. And that's often very common for Aries people. Not always all Aries people have head issues, but Aries people or planets, if you have Mars, if you have it rising, definitely be careful with your head and accidents. And it's the jaw too. It's also the head that connects to the jaw. So all of that would behoove everybody, but especially people with Aries planets. And if you know anybody with Aries planets, please comment, or if you see this on the replay, comment what you have in Aries, or where and how you think that new moon in Aries tomorrow is going to affect you. Because the Aries, I mentioned with all that Pisces energy, now Pisces is very mysterious, and you often don't readily see or feel Pisces energy from people. And I mentioned when I was in Pisces, I was like, where are the Pisces? Well, that's because that's Pisces. Pisces is not going out of their way to say, hey, I'm Pisces. Aries, yes. Aries is going out of his or her way to say, hey, I'm Aries. I'm here. It's time to fire things up. It's time to have an enthusiasm for life. It doesn't matter what the evidence is in your life right now. You know, obviously, if you have anxiety or depression or anything like that, it's harder. You can't just summon at will, oh, I want to be happy. But it's a process. Every day, it's a process. And also, you can have parts of the day that are brighter. You know, remember, every day is a new day. And with the new moons, every month is a new day and a new month and a new cycle. So your life may feel boring or stale, but it never stays that way. Everything is in transit and everything is moving, holding patterns, sort of thing. But I wanted to mention again, thank you to the US viewers. I'm getting 30 to 40% of my views lately are from the United States. So the US is keeping my channel alive right now. Not so much the other countries. So thank you, my United States viewers. The Canada and UK has kind of dwindled. And then, of course, the other ones like India, Algeria, and Russia have dwindled a little bit. Carolyn says, very astute analysis. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, this is a really cool, this is a cool week. That's why it's so important to look at the degrees and the co-rulers, because that's really how you put it all together. Okay, so before we finish, I want to leave you, I want to go out with, so I mentioned this at the beginning of the hour, so I'm not sure if the people that came in late heard it. 1935, 1965, and 1995. So if you or anyone are born on a 5-year, mainly those years, but the other years would be like a semi-cycle. But those are the Saturn return people. The people turning 30, 60, and 90, let's say today or this year. But I'm talking about people that are born today. So here's a person that's born, that's 30 years old tonight. This would be their chart. So if you know anybody that's born on this date in 1995 and they're turning 30, this is their chart. They had the sun at 7 of Aries, and I circled here, over here. I circled here. There's Saturn at 17 of Aries. So the Saturn. Tomorrow morning, Saturn sits at 24 degrees of Pisces direct. So as you can see here, it's earlier than that. It's Saturn at 17, which means this person has basically completed, they've already had a direct hit to their Saturn at 17. So their Saturn return is basically complete. They are 30 years old today. This person also has the moon in Pisces, the Mercury in Pisces, Venus in Pisces. So for an Aries, all this person is ruled by, let's see, ruled by Mars and Leo. Wow, that's pretty dramatic. All the Aries ruled by Mars and Leo, and then basically a stellium in Pisces. So I would love to talk to somebody that's born March 28th, 1995, because this is quite the chart. But I mentioned the 30-year-old person today because of the Saturn transit, the conjunction, the return. So this person is finished it. Now, if someone's born in 96 and they're going to be 30 a year from tonight, they are ending it. So this next year is they're just ending it. They've been starting their work at 27, 28. Then now they're 29, going on 30. But someone that's just turning 30, they're basically finishing it up. Now Saturn's going to retrograde and go back into Pisces. Saturn will, let me see. Saturn's going to go back to, I believe it's 25 or 26 degrees of Pisces in a few months. So we're going further and further. We're going to enter Aries, and then we're going to quickly retrograde that Saturn back to a Aries Pisces cusp, which is redundant. How many times have I said that in the last season? Aries Pisces cusp, and then go back into Pisces and go 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, and hit again. So those Saturn Pisces people, especially the 96 people, but also even 95, it's close enough to where they've already had their hit. It's the last finale. So a few more months. Karen says, yes, thank you. You're welcome. So it'll be a few more months. So someone that's turning 60 tonight, someone that's turning 90 or turning 30, or this year, even someone born December 31st of this year, they're still on a 5-year. They are finishing it up. They're basically done, but they're going to get one more hit. Saturn's going to come back and go, hey, I'm going to sprinkle a little more melancholy Pisces karmic energy on you and finish up this person that's 30, especially the 30-year-olds, much more important than the 60 or 90-year-olds that have had more life behind them. But a 30-year-old, this is like a wake-up call to grow up, so to speak. And 30 is a tough age for a lot of people because it's often ending the adolescence of the 20s. And the 25 to 30 part, which is coming into the Saturn return part, is often an extended adolescence for people as far as, having fun and partying, changing jobs, getting married, that sort of thing happens a lot between 28 and 31 or 32. Very, very pivotal time in people's lives. So again, if you know anybody on those 5 years, they're going to have their one last hit with Saturn, and then 6 years. So if someone's in a 7-year, 37, 67, or 97, they're turning 28 tonight. They have 2 more years to go. They're in the thick of it. They're in the thick of, how am I going to grow up in these next 2 years? And what is life giving me? What is school? What is school, my relationships, or work giving me as a 28-year-old, someone born in 97, the impetus to grow up, that sort of thing, because that's very, very pivotal. And that'll be for the next year and a half or so. So the 5, 6, and 7 years for the Saturn is most important. And it really is just, I've never looked at a chart where sometimes someone will ask me, if I do a reading for someone will ask me, someone that's, let's say, 45 years old or something, 45 or 50, they'll say, can you look back and find out when I had my Saturn return? And of course, yes, we can do that. You can animate the chart and you can look at it, and you can just construct it. And then even if you guess, I can guess the times. I can do a 5 a.m., 12 p.m., 10 p.m., and then see where the Saturn moves. But I could tell the person the week and then the day that they had their exact hit. And then once they passed it, the second time, like the 95 person's going to have one more quick, almost little hit, and then it's going to pass when it's going to go direct into Aries. Then there'll be no more Saturn and Pisces. So then the people that have natal Saturn and Pisces on these 5 years, they are done for now until we get to Saturn and Gemini, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, which will be the next cycle for them, which will be in another 7 years, which is around 35, 36, 37. That'll be the Saturn square. And that's a big thing too. So if you know anyone that is born in, let's say, 1987, the late 80s, someone born in the late 80s that are going to be approaching 40 in the next couple of years, if they didn't do things at 30 or 32 to grow up with the Saturn return, if they didn't restructure their life sufficiently, and that doesn't mean you can't be youthful and fun. It just means in certain areas that you may need it to mature and ripen a little bit at around 32. Then at 37, 38, 39, that's going to be a really big wake-up call, because that Saturn square is going to be really tense if the person didn't do their work at 30, 32 and resisted the maturity. And now you have a person that's almost 40, but possibly is emotionally immature and on the level of someone that would still be in their 20s if they didn't do their Saturn work. So that's why the Saturn cycles is so important. Now, maturity is different for everybody. We're always maturing and learning. I don't think anybody is fully, that's just life. We always have something to work on with ourselves, and that's okay. That's a good thing. The Virgos out there, right? People with Virgo planets would say, correct, you have something to work on. Improve that. That's Virgo, and that's a good thing as long as we don't take that too far into perfectionism. But I'll leave you with that, with the Saturn and the people turning 30. So again, anyone that's 28, 29, or 30 this year, basically finishing up or starting their Saturn return at 28. If someone's 31, like I talked months ago about people that were in the 4 years, like 94, and I knew a couple of people that were 94, they're done because they have an early Saturn Pisces, the early degrees, the first decan of Pisces, a Neptune Saturn Pisces degree. So they're done. And that's probably a good thing because Saturn in Pisces is heavy and melancholy. And again, if the person has any Pisces planets, so anyone that has Pisces planets in the early 20s, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, in the coming months, you're getting that conjunction, the Saturn to the moon. So that can help with structure of your emotions, but it can also create tension or sadness or melancholy. So try to do some inner work, meditation, breathing, whatever you can. But thank you so much for attending. I appreciate it. Please tell your family and friends. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here, Astroscoop 3801 on YouTube. I'm also on X and Instagram. And tomorrow, the new moon in Aries. It's the one day of the year, I really think it's the one day of the year where you can tap into the absolute primal energy of starting anything you want to start. Anything, no matter how stupid or offbeat or weird it is. Primarily, if it's healthy, if you're approaching it in a healthy and honest way. It has to be honest, because that's Aries. It has to be honest. It can't be something that's too, scheming or too complicated. Primarily, you want to work with that Aries energy that's direct and honest. And it may peter out. It may jane out because it's fire, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't think about it and initiate it and start it. So if anyone has any comments in the next week or two about what you started, something new at work, or any new videos of mine that you're watching, or anything new, I know that how I'm using this Aries moon this weekend is I'm watching a lot of other astrologers from around the world, so that I'm educating myself and other people's point of views, other astrologers' point of views, but also other countries, the energy and the vibrations of other countries that have their own wisdom that's different than mine, that I can learn from and that I can engage with, and that's only going to enhance my energy with the new moon. So I'm open to that, and that's it. But again, the head. Everybody, use your head. Use your head wisely, and don't be careful of accidents. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I really, really appreciate it. And I want to put the intent tomorrow morning. I should look at the chart for Astroscoop. I should try to look at my event chart for when I started Astroscoop. Now, I'm not sure, would that be the very first day I did it, or would it be when I conceived it? Those would be, I don't know, two different things. But I should look at that and see where Aries falls in my event chart. Now, that might be kind of interesting. But thank you so much. Until the next time, stay safe and be yourself. We'll see you soon.